from the Richmond Journalism Studio on the campus of the University of Illinois. This is Hear My Voice, Special Edition.
A few days ago, decide to go public with your story.
He said the allegations were patently false against him. I knew otherwise. I knew what kind of guy he was.
He said he would help me. He wanted to help me.
I thought, wow, he's going to be a mentor for me.
And I said, you know, I will go up and meet with you in your office, but you are not allowed to touch me. And he said, ah, ha, ha. He kind of laughed it off, and he shook my hand, though, and he said, I won't.
He invited me to a business meeting that we were supposed to talk about career stuff, and we were supposed to meet in the lobby, and when I got there, he wasn't there. He called me and asked me to come to his room.
I remember the lurch when I went to the desk and I said, Mr. Weinstein, is he on the patio? And they said, he's in his room. And I was like, ugh, are you kidding me?
I felt really uncomfortable. I tried to sort of skirt out of it afterwards, but he wanted me to stop by his apartment with him quickly while he ran up to get something.
I showed up at the restaurant and it was just her. She then led me up to a room. She said, his meeting's going over, so let's just go up to the room.
I thought we were meeting at the bar, which we did. And then he told me, okay, we're going to my room now, after a few minutes of conversation about movie roles.
He wanted to fly me to New York and give me a role in Sarah Jessica Parker's new film. He alternated between that and asking me to give him a naked massage in the bed.
He went to the bathroom, came back out of the bathroom in a robe, and asked me to give him a massage.
But when we entered the bedroom, and the whole time he's talking, and it never stopped, you have to understand this, what he had going on, what projects were coming, what he thought I would be right for. He dropped his robe, went into the bathroom in front of me, and began to use the toilet.
I said I wanted to go. He left the room again, and this time he came back fully naked, and he was blocking the door.
On the table, he had a bunch of papers, and he said, listen, these are contracts for my next 3 films. I will sign them right now, but I want you to have a threesome with me and my assistant.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for our special edition of Hear My Voice. Today's show, Boundaries Crossed and Undefined. I'm Shaniba Nezra.
And I'm Joe Longo. Today we're discussing the many sexual assault cases in Hollywood, in our nation, and on campus, addressing the questions and the responsibilities of citizens, institutions, and industries.
We'll also talk about campus safety in general and how some international students may feel after one of our very own students, Yin Zhang, was abducted over the summer.
The show is inclusive, and in that spirit, we'd like to hear your voice, your questions, and your comments live from YouTube.
If you'd like to make a comment or have a question, just post it on one of our social media pages, where we're streaming live on YouTube under Hear My Voice UIUC. We begin with sexual assault allegations that are sweeping across our nation far and wide, from accusations running rampant in Hollywood to Capitol Hill and now within newsrooms and from podiums of a famous conductor. In many ways, the voices of victims began at the beginning of October, when multiple women came forward to accuse Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein of sexual misconduct. Since then, many high-profile men in various industries have been fired, suspended, or resigned after being accused of inappropriate behavior. To date, that number has reached over 60 men and will likely to rise as power dynamics continue to shift.
Days after the bombshell report accusing him of sexually harassing women, this morning Harvey Weinstein is out of a job.
Explosive allegations coming from this 10-month-long investigation by The New Yorker, while at the same time, 2 of Hollywood's top stars, Gwyneth Paltrow and Angelina Jolie, are telling the New York Times they were harassed by Weinstein too. Published on Tuesday, it says at least 11 women have come forward with misconduct allegations, including 3 who allege rape.
President George H.W. Bush facing new groping allegations, this time from a woman who says she was 16 when he touched her inappropriately. Rosalind Corrigan told Time magazine, as soon as the picture was being snapped, on the 1, 2, 3, he dropped his hands from my waist down to my buttocks and gave it a nice, ripe squeeze, which would account for the fact that in the photograph, my mouth is hanging wide open. I was like, oh my goodness, what just happened?
A growing number of GOP lawmakers distancing themselves from Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore. The fallout in response to accusations of sexual assault and abuse.
And he said, I am the district attorney of Etowah County. And if you tell anyone about this, no one will ever believe you.
A new woman is coming forward this morning to say that Senator Al Franken groped her years ago. To put all of this into context, Stephanie is the 5th woman now in a period of around 2 weeks to accuse Senator Franken of inappropriate touching.
Alarming new allegations of sexual misconduct emerging against Matt Lauer, a former NBC employee, telling the New York Times that in 2001, Lauer summoned her to his office, locked the door, and sexually assaulted her. She says she never reported the incident because she felt ashamed and feared losing her job.
You wonder why there's only 21 women in the Senate, or why there's no women running Hollywood studios, or there's hardly any women running major businesses. Well, when you have work environments where people feel like they can't get ahead without having to put out, that's what happens.
Many of these accused men, including Ben Affleck, are in films currently being screened nationwide.
And it's even impacting moviegoers nearby. Last week I spoke with theaters in Central Illinois to see how they're addressing these allegations at a local level.
New and classic films. However, the theater is now faced with a hard decision. In light of the ongoing Hollywood fallout, should they air films produced, directed, and starring artists accused of sexual harassment?
You know, we don't want to be showing things, you know, about egotistical maniacs, you know, or probably something produced by Mr. Weinstein. We try to have a moral compass when we're programming.
Jessie Seitz is the staff coordinator and assistant programmer for the Art Theater. She works with their booking agent to select films available to screen.
Actually, we've just recently reevaluated our programming strategy, and now it is opened up to the community in an effort to get really diverse voices out there.
Seitz and other staff faced a moral dilemma in September about attending Fantastic Fest, a genre film festival in Austin, Texas. 2 men, including co-founder Harry Knowles, came under fire for sexual assault. Co-founder Tim League of Alabama Draft House issued an apology prior to the festival where he promised to remove Knowles from the company.
Ultimately, we did decide to do Fantastic Fest only to represent and support the women who were there, but we made a statement and full support the women who avoided that.
The Savoy 16 IMAX is owned by Good Quality Theaters, a chain with 31 locations throughout the Midwest and Florida. General Manager Melissa Garski says the individual theaters have very little say in what they show on screen.
Our corporate office has a film department, and they're the ones that do all the negotiations for what we're going to be showing and how many screens it's going to be showing on. They work directly with the film companies to do that.
The New York Times first broke the story in October 2017 by accusing Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein of sexual assault. Since then, over 35 high-profile men across a range of industries have been accused of various degrees of sexual harassment.
As far as movies are concerned and what we're showing on screen, we're always pretty much, you know, leave it up to the customer, the consumer, to decide what they do and don't want to see.
Movie theaters are also reeling from a 25-year low at the summer box office. It remains to be seen just how much of an impact the sexual assault fallout will have on Hollywood.
Local theaters are not the only ones wondering if you can separate the art from the artist. We hit the Quad yesterday to hear what students had to say about the question, and we're wondering what students might think about supporting Hollywood's alleged accusers in their latest works.
Okay. Personally, I wouldn't boycott a film based on one person in the film just because there's so many other people who worked really hard to make the film come together.
I don't really think that it's right to support people who have been accused of it because probably there's meaning behind it.
If I saw someone who committed sexual assault on camera, that's all I would be able to think about.
It's difficult to say just because a lot of the times the film or the TV show doesn't really reflect the vision of whoever was the perpetrator of that.
I would continue watching the show regardless if the director was accused of sexual assault.
I love the shows. I want to say yes, but morally I want to say no because we shouldn't be supporting people that commit these acts.
Rapists should not be able to get away with anything, and that I would not watch a movie that they made.
Kevin Spacey, for example, you know, allegations went down, and Netflix canceled House of Cards. So I kind of see that as a way of them letting people know that they don't stand for stuff like that. and if we don't speak up for it, then no one will.
If it's something that's worth watching, then it should probably be made by people who are worth my attention.
While everyone may not be in agreement, the industry has already started to take action. Streaming services like HBO Go have already removed content from some of the accusers, including Louis C.K.
And Joe, didn't Netflix actually just remove Kevin Spacey from his role in House of Cards?
Right, they removed him as both a producer and the star of the show and announced their next season will be their final and star-only Robin Wright.
Wow. Well, you know, much like the accusations, the impact of these allegations travel far and wide. It's also important to recognize how social media has played a role in giving voice to the voiceless and finding solidarity among survivors. The social media Me Too campaign is one platform that has given victims a chance to speak out. Some are calling it that hashtag that rocked the world.
We would really want everyone to know that for every Weinstein out there, there's 100 more men in our communities who are doing the exact same thing.
The Me Too campaign was started by activist and survivor Tarana Burke. The campaign is actually an 11-year-old movement, but it did not become a social phenomenon until actress Alyssa Milano tweeted, hashtag Me Too, when Weinstein allegations came to light. Her goal was to steer the conversation away from the predator and towards the victim. She sparked in women the confidence to come forward with their own experiences being sexually assaulted.
Doesn't matter how it started, doesn't matter who tweeted it, doesn't matter that it's Hollywood. We're all human beings and everybody has a story, and now people are standing up and paying attention. So I feel great about that.
This campaign continues to bring more women's stories to light. Just this week, 4 women who have previously accused President Trump of sexual misconduct before he took office called on Congress to investigate their allegations. So let's take a stroll back to the 2016 election. A candidate at the time, Donald Trump, was caught on tape bragging about groping women. 15 women have accused now President Trump of sexual harassment. The White House has denied all allegations.
The president has denied any of these allegations, as have eyewitnesses.
Senator Al Franken stepped down last week after an 8th woman accused him of sexual harassment. But amidst allegations against Trump, Franken doesn't agree with resigning.
I, of all people, am aware that there is some irony in the fact that I am leaving while a man who has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assault sits in the Oval Office, and a man who has repeatedly preyed on young girls campaigns for the Senate with the full support of his party.
Many prominent senators are now calling for President Trump to resign and are backing his accusers' demand that Congress investigate into Trump's history of sexual misconduct. Even U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley weighed in.
Women who accuse anyone should be heard. They should be heard and they should be dealt with. And I think we heard from them prior to the election. And I think any woman who has felt violated or felt mistreated in any way, they have every right to speak up.
So what is Congress actually doing? The House of Representatives approved a bill earlier this month requiring sexual harassment training for members and their staff. Lawmakers are now also filing bipartisan legislation to expose members who have used taxpayer funds to settle sexual harassment claims, such as Michigan's longtime Democratic Congressman John Conyers. And today is voting day for Alabama's special Senate election. Roy Moore is still in the race. The results will tell us just how important sexual assault is to the American people.
While Congress may only be addressing sexual assault now, measures have already been put in place to address this issue on campus. Title IX is a federal civil rights law that addresses sexual harassment, sexual violence, and any gender-based discrimination that may deny a person's access to educational benefits and opportunities. The Obama administration took significant measures to make sure that sexual assault was included in the harassments prohibited by Title IX. Through the Dear Colleague letter and the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act. The Trump administration has since rescinded these efforts and plans to change the way colleges address sexual assault.
Established by the prior administration has failed too many students. Survivors, victims of a lack of due process, and campus administrators have all told me that the current approach does a disservice to everyone involved.
Critics believe this new guidance will deter progress on campus sexual assault and discourage survivors from coming forward from reporting. Shani, I can't help but feel that these laws that might become in place are not going to be helpful.
Right, Joe, I'm wondering, what really is the point of amending this process that took a lot of work and, it seems that it's benefiting the survivors. And I think it's extremely concerning to hear Betsy DeVos, calling accusees victims as well.
It's just, it's disheartening because we've made a lot of progress throughout the years. And hopefully we can continue to move forward. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be joined by a live guest to tell her story of surviving sexual assault. And we'll take a closer look at what exactly campus police are doing to keep students safe from all crimes on campus.
We'll also revisit the ongoing aftermath of a visiting scholar's kidnapping and the effect it's had on campus security measures. Is campus still a safe place for students? We'll discuss this and more when we come back.
Everything starts out small. The things that hurt us, they all start from somewhere. The words we say, the things we do, they can grow into something else. What was small and innocent can become big and sometimes scary. All it takes is one comment, one picture, one video for something to catch fire. But a big problem doesn't need a big response. Not at first. Even if we don't know what to say, the eye emoji can be that first step we take. Let's all pledge to take that first small step together and change the world in a big way. I'm a witness, and so are you.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert? Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help.
You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home.
I blew on him.
So we were walking to school.
I started thinking about lunch. Mom packed me turkey and cheese.
She's
I really want
smart.
cheese pizza.
Sometimes her mind wanders.
We should have a sleepover.
I remember saying, Laura?
I think I heard Mom say something.
The sign says don't walk.
Sometimes it's so overwhelming.
I really hope she doesn't
I
have
really
another
hope
bad
we don't
day
have another bad day at school today.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. Go to understood.org, a free online resource with support and tools to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to Hear My Voice Special Edition, Boundaries Crossed and Undefined. Before the break, we discussed sexual assault on the Hill and in Hollywood, but now we're moving to assaults on campus and what universities are doing to increase safety.
Research shows that 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted while in college. According to national statistics, 88% of these women will not report it.
I told this administrator I was violently raped, and we're sitting down at this point, and she looks at me and she's like, "Rape is like a football game, Annie. And if you look back on the game, what would you do differently in that situation?" I was expecting resources, I was expecting support, and instead she gives me this metaphor that rape is football, and it made no sense. And I asked her, no, rape is not like football at all. And she's like, well, were you drunk, and what would you have done differently if you could replay the situation again? And I was just getting blamed and blamed and blamed for this.
The Hunting Ground is a Netflix documentary that reports on the epidemic of sexual assault on college campuses and school officials' efforts to cover up these crimes. There are federal policies in place to protect victims of sexual assault on campus, which in many cases, administrators ignore and focus instead on protecting the reputation of the institution. In addition to Title IX that we mentioned before break, the Clery Act requires colleges that receive federal funding to provide transparency around campus policy and statistics. Failing to report an incident in a timely manner is a violation of the Clery Act and can warrant a $35,000 fine. CU Citizen Access and the Daily Illini reported that in 2016, University of Illinois officials neglected to forward student reports of sex offenses to university police for months. The issue of sexual assault on campus goes beyond the act itself. The culture of victim blaming and institutional negligence is failing victims across the country, and silencing survivors does little to nothing to make the problem go away.
One individual who would not simply let the problem go away in the media is singer, producer, author, and sexual assault survivor Myra Smith. She is live with us via Skype from the state of Virginia. Myra, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Myra, can you first briefly tell us about your story of being a survivor?
Well, I was assaulted or raped actually at the age of 6, first, and then as an adult at the age of 26. And I do believe with true conviction that silence is deadly.
And so often when we talk about sexual assault, we often ask the question, or why didn't people report? But as we're realizing, that's not necessarily a great question to ask. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know that in my case, when I was a child, I was forced to keep quiet. It was a family thing, and they decided we were going to keep it in the family. And unfortunately, by doing that, I was the first of 7 in the family to be raped by this individual.
Myra, I'm so sorry to hear about that experience, and thank you again for even being willing to share this with us. You know, I'm wondering, what do you think is the biggest problem and most important solution to stopping these instances of sexual abuse?
Really, like I think I heard you say, is to report it, is to speak out. Again, like I always say, silence is deadly. Even though it's such, when it happens to you, you to keep quiet. You want the shame that comes upon you. It makes you want to keep quiet. You have to speak out. You have to tell somebody. You have to find somewhere that is safe. Get with others. There's so many women this happens to. When I speak to women and I get in groups of women, to me, you can't get in a group of 5 women and not find at least 2 women that have been sexually assaulted. So it is more common than you think. And so I am my sister's keeper. And so I know that if you link up with other women, we are strong and we overcome by each other's testimonies. So we can get together and we are stronger together. If we bind together and we tell each other stories and we tell these stories together and get the word out, we will, bring shame to them instead of them bringing shame to us.
And finally, we want to talk a little bit about your project. We understand that you've used this story to help others in your art.
Yeah. I have songs that I talk about it. I wrote a book about it. And then I have a web series called Her Turn, where I got together with a group of women who were willing to share their stories. And we are telling it. We are not being quiet. We are telling the stories of our rape. We're telling the stories of our overcoming. We're telling our stories of our survival. And there are women lined up waiting to tell their stories. This web series will go on for probably way past me, because there's so many women and men, just women, men, boys, girls, all kinds of people who have been abused and are waiting to tell their stories, waiting for the platform to be able to tell their stories.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Myra, for your courage in telling your story and for joining us live today to share with us all that can be done and what you are doing to fight for survivors.
You truly are giving a voice to survivors, Myra, and we can't wait to continue seeing your work as it goes on.
I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We feel positive and hope that Myra sharing her story can help others share their story as well and live out and open. However, unfortunately, sexual assault isn't the only crime we're dealing with on campus today. It's been half a year since 26-year-old Ying Zhang was last seen on campus, and authorities are still continuing to search for answers about her sudden disappearance. Zhang was Chinese scholar here at Illinois, and she arrived in April from Southeast China to conduct research for the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Sciences. Campus police released the surveillance footage you're about to see from a nearby parking garage on June 9th. The footage shows Zhang getting into a car at the bus stop at the intersection of North Goodwin and West Clark Street. That was the last time she was seen, and FBI officials presume she is dead. On June 13th, authorities arrested former U of I doctoral candidate Brent A. Christensen with her kidnapping. Christensen has pleaded not guilty to his charges, and his hearing is scheduled for February 27th. If he is convicted of the kidnapping resulting in Zhang's death, he could face the death penalty or life in prison. QAD in Moline, Illinois, reports that authorities say the investigation took longer than necessary because the surveillance cameras were outdated and the footage was foggy. School officials are also saying that they are working on this story continuously.
This incident has sparked concerns over how up-to-date safety technology is on campus. Another one of our reporters, Jessica Watson, went out to learn more. Jess?
Thank you, Shani. Being such a large campus, certain safety measures must be put in place to keep campus safe.
The Daily Illini reports the University of Illinois has over 1,400 cameras installed across the university campus. In Yingying's case, the security camera that recorded her kidnapping was located right on the edge of campus, between Richmond's studio and the Siebel Center for Computer Science.
This call box was 5 feet away from where Yingying was kidnapped. Since then, campus police have added 50 more cameras around campus.
The security cameras have been an ongoing project since before Yingying and have been continued to be implemented after. Police spokesman Patrick Wade explained to me how the cameras have been crucial in many cases around campus, in both capturing an image of a suspect, vehicle, or even the crime itself. University police have installed around 675 emergency phones on campus. These are extra helpful because when called, they connect you directly to emergency services.
Cell phones are less reliable than landlines, so thank goodness we have these call boxes to use in case of emergency. Do not hesitate to use them. And remember, it is our responsibility to help out the police and our campus when we can. Reporting for Hear My Voice, I'm Jessica Watson. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you for that report, Jess.
News of Zhang's kidnapping has disturbed those all the way in China as well as international students here on campus. Hear My Voice investigative team Olivia Schmidt and Stella Yu have more.
Was that Yingying Zhang's parents weren't the only ones affected by her sudden disappearance.
We sat down with 2 international students who say Zhang's kidnapping continues to rattle them almost 6 months later.
Since Yingying Zhang's disappearance, 2 international students from the University of Illinois opened up about their concerns with campus safety.
So my name's Jinso Park, and I'm 21, and I'm from Seoul, South Korea.
Hey, I'm Karen Yuan. I'm 20 years old, and I'm from Hong Kong.
Both Yuan and Park were staying in Champaign over the summer when they first heard about Zhang's disappearance.
I didn't think that it was going to be a huge case. I thought that the police would find the car soon and then the student will be found.
Having someone disappear and not having to find them, it concerns me a lot.
Park began to have concerns about campus safety as she recalls her experiences during her first year in the U.S. as a freshman international student.
I didn't really get educated that much in campus safety. They focus more on violence, but they don't really do much on campus safety.
Yuan believes that Zhang's case helps bring awareness for new improvements with campus safety here at U of I.
I think we should definitely install more cameras or just have more patrols, more police officers around here, and that will definitely help us with our safety concern.
Park takes extra precautions around campus to keep herself safe when she is alone.
Tell my friends to keep safe, and if I do have to walk around alone at nights, I just walk fast and usually take the bus when it's too late, take safe rides.
Park and Yuan hope to see change with campus safety on behalf of the international student community.
As our community continues to grapple with Zhang's disappearance, we hope her story raises awareness about the importance of campus safety.
Back to you in the studio, Joe and Shani.
Thank you, Olivia and Stella, for that report. And as a matter of fact, they'll be joining us later in the show to discuss covering this and other tough topics as a journalist. And still to come on Hear My Voice, we'll be joined by Campus Police Officer Lieutenant Joan Fiesta in the studio to continue the conversation, and it's important information that you'll likely want to remember.
And we want to hear from you, the audience. What do you think needs to be done to bring an end to sexual assault and diminish crime on campus? Post your comments on our social media platforms on YouTube Live so we can read what you think.
I realized that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listen.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Wait, why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where the cats go on vacation? New York.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here.
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
I'm ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to Hear My Voice Special Edition, Boundaries Crossed and Undefined. Lieutenant Joan Fiesta will join us shortly. But first, Hear My Voice reporter Kane Walters sat down for a conversation with Campus Police Public Relations Officer Patrick Wade.
They discussed what still needs to be done on campus to make it safer for students. Kane?
That's right, Joe. Answers that pretty much offer some really important information that all students on campus should know.
If you get a campus safety notice, that's a crime or incident or series of incidents that we've determined in some way present some kind of ongoing threat to the campus community.
Even with the Illini alert notifying students of the danger, he also explains how the university standards can make cases hard.
It's difficult because there's different standards of evidence used. So for us, we have to be sure beyond a reasonable doubt in the criminal world that something has happened for someone to go to jail for that. With the student discipline, more than 50% of the evidence, it's more likely than not that something did occur.
He also says that campus safety isn't just up to the police. It's everyone working together. Live in the newsroom for Hear My Voice, I'm Kane Walters. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Kane. That was really some great information.
Absolutely.
So we want to continue the conversation with Lieutenant Joan Fiesta from the University Police Department. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So can you first explain a little bit about your background with the police department?
I started working for the police department as a student patrol officer back in 1991, and then got on with the department in 93.
And are you a graduate of the university?
I am.
What year?
So 93.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And so how have you seen safety on campus change from when you were a student to your role now?
The campus has grown tremendously. When I was a student here, we had about 36,000 students, and now we have about 45. So with that population explosion, we've seen a lot more starting to happen on campus, and the campus area itself has not grown. So there's 9,000 more people in a smaller area. So we've had traffic congestion, we've had pedestrian issues. So some of the safety issues have really taken hold.
And officer, I have a question. I'm just wondering, with your background and then the work you're doing now, what really inspired you to be a part of the police department?
Actually, working for student patrol was awesome because you had actual connections to the police, and you got to see the good that police do and some of the fun things that they get to do. But also with the university itself, just the service to its students. And the policing in a university environment is a little bit different than municipalities because you get to work with really great people who are going on to the next phases of their lives, and you get to be a part of that.
So can you explain kind of what is really the police's role in students' lives that they can understand?
We're educators as well as police officers. When students come to university, they are here to learn how not only the academic side of things, but also living life freely. And we get to be a part of that and helping people make wise choices.
And so moving on to this year, what have been some of the main issues that your department has been addressing?
Theft is always the big issue because it's so prevalent. It's the #1 crime that we have on campus. But in the past few years, there's been a greater emphasis on sexual assault, and not only what people can do to prevent it, but what bystanders can do and what basically those who are perpetrating sexual assault, what they need to do to stop.
So what is it that they can do?
Well, with bystander intervention, we do find that when bystanders can intervene in a situation that they see is going badly, that's a really great preventative measure because it can snap people out of some bad behaviors. It creates kind of a buffer for people. And we've always taught prevention, and we've really focused on the potential victims. But now we're starting to teach people how to be better partners and not be perpetrators.
So what does bystander intervention look like? How would you recommend to a student to intervene in a safe way?
In a safe way, just have the words for it. Look, I don't think that this is going right. You said that you want to do this. I'm noticing that you're behaving in this way. This is not you. Let's take a break and let's get you out of here. And this is both for people who are displaying bad behaviors or somebody who is not recognizing those bad behaviors.
And do you believe that there is enough training on this campus for either incoming students or students throughout their experience at Illinois, both with sexual assault prevention and with bystander intervention?
I think we have a good start with FY Care. FY Care was there long before mandates were there. But I think what we're lacking on the campus, and really needs to be an initiative, is an ongoing conversation. So the mandate is there for the first year, but throughout a college career, we want that conversation to continue.
Absolutely. We would hope the same.
And so we want to move on to another point. The university is known for their unofficial St. Patrick's Day celebrations each March. As a student, was this something that was active when you were here?
No, I'm that ancient. Unofficial had not yet been put into place, but it really blew up several years ago. I was a sergeant, and we were not prepared for what came. There were intoxicated people in the classrooms, all over the quad. 4th Street was undrivable because people had taken over the streets. So what the university did was try to create a positive change in students. We did a major crackdown with the cities on the bars. So Unofficial really lived in the bars at that point, but when we cracked down on the bars, it then moved to apartments. So it became somewhat unmanageable from an enforcement perspective. So what we really work to do is educate students on good drinking habits, how to contact us. Came up with an amnesty policy regarding Unofficial because we didn't want people dying. We didn't want people to be fearful that they're going to get a ticket and somebody dies.
And so I've only recently learned that some places that we consider part of campus are actually part of campus town. So for instance, near CAMS, that's not actually a campus jurisdiction. How does that relationship work?
We have a very close working relationship with the city of Champaign and the city of Urbana. So even though we do have jurisdictional lines, so if you call 911 based on the address, that is a Champaign response or an Urbana response. But because we do have such a close working relationship, we help each other out.
And can you go into further explanation on the amnesty laws?
Amnesty, so basically if a friend, you're drinking and a friend is in a medical emergency due to alcohol or another substance, if you contact the police and help the police and ambulance get this person to the hospital, we do not issue tickets.
And did that come out of Unofficial specifically?
It came out of a lot of different conversations, but Unofficial was a part of it.
And so we want to shift again to sexual assault. As you mentioned, it's been an ongoing conversation. What do you think is a reason that it's becoming to the forefront today?
I think a lot of things, when President Obama made it a national effort, I think that really set a lot of things in motion. On this campus, we had been doing a lot of things, but like I said, when President Obama and Vice President Biden really took a look at college sexual assault, I think our campus responded beautifully with the student government that was in place and the It's On Us campaign. We even got Vice President Biden to come visit us. I think those conversations, we needed a leader to actually start that.
And coming out of those conversations, how does the Clery Act, add to the university's ability to protect students? And if you could describe exactly what the Clery Act is.
Oh, sure. The Clery Act is a federal mandate that that universities are not allowed to hide crime statistics or safety statistics because universities are very competitive, and safety is one of those things that people look at. So if there wasn't that act, universities might not be as transparent as they need to be. So what we work to do is give people the statistics, give them what's going on campus so that they can make positive choices through the Clery Act.
And can you give students, whether they're freshmen or whether they've been on campus, kind of those tips to really make safer decisions?
Know what's going on. If you get a campus safety notice from the chief of police, don't just say, oh, this is just another campus safety notice, but take a look at the links that are in there. There's interesting information on bystander intervention, how to protect your things from burglaries. Also go to our website and our social media page. Our public information officer does a great job at putting out tips. He's pretty amazing. But also be aware of your surroundings at all times, and don't be afraid to say no to somebody. If somebody's harassing you or causing a problem, stand up for yourself.
Well, we want to thank you so much for coming on with us. Is there anything last you'd like to add?
No, I appreciate the chance to talk with you on this.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you taking the time and providing us with such useful insight.
I'm going to grab that in 2 seconds.
Before we take a quick break, we should also consider the perspective of male victims of sexual assault. You know, it's usually underreported, but we're hoping that will change with the Me Too campaign, and many may hopefully start to speak out.
That's a really good point, Joe. If anyone is a victim of sexual assault, there are resources on this campus to help you. The Women's Resource Center provides all sorts of support services. The Rape Advocacy Counseling and Education Services and University Counseling both have individual counselors. You can find all of this information on our Twitter account at here_my_voice1. And always remember, you are not alone. We'll be right back.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Hey guys, today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Give kisses. Give kisses. Look. Give kisses. Give kisses. You heard how loud that was.
I know,
Please
I
stick
heard,
to that.
I heard. It wasn't you.
Yeah.
It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Bacon.
Families come in all sizes and shapes. Sometimes your friends are your family by choice. or sometimes you're just stuck with Uncle Charles. But what we know is that you want to protect the people that are close to you. But the flu can unravel everything. Your flu vaccine protects you and your family. No matter what draws your family together, protect yourself, protect your family. Everyone needs a flu vaccine.
Good morning, Illini.
Hey, good morning, Illini, and selamat pagi.
Good morning, Illini.
Stand by. Welcome back to Hear My Voice Special Edition, Boundaries Crossed and Undefined.
Speaking of crossing boundaries, it's important to discuss the difficulties of covering these types of stories as journalists.
We all bring our own perspectives and feelings to each and every story that we cover, even when we do try to remain objective. Hear My Voice reporter Stella Yu and Olivia Schmidt are here to talk about the challenges that student journalists face while covering certain stories on campus.
There's the story of students lending their voices to the protests of sexual assault.
And then there's the international story of the aftermath of Ying Zhang's disappearance and the fallout that has caused since then on campus.
Let's begin. So, what challenges do you think stories like these bring to a student journalist?
Well, first of all, I'm an international student, so when I covered Ying Zhang's disappearance, it was definitely like a topic that's very sensitive, and knowing that it hits home for many of the international students, it was kind of hard to not be emotional about it and have to be very objective and make sure I don't go too deep to go deep inside myself and be very just make sure I get their story out through my voice.
Right, and Stella, when you covered a story that does hit so close to home, what did you do to make sure that you did remain objective and that you weren't getting too involved in the story?
I think what I did was to remember that I'm a reporter and I have to take myself out of the story and I have to tell their story and not mine, and I have to make sure I don't get myself too involved into it.
Right, and I think we definitely saw the outcome with your wonderful reporting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Olivia, as a student on campus, is it hard to cover stories about other students?
I mean, this was just such a horrible story, we all know, and so it wasn't fun to cover this story, but I think it's so important that we raise awareness about these type of things and so that it brings about change. So it was difficult, especially because it was just such an emotional thing. It was one of our own, and it happened 1 mile away from our house. I mean, yeah.
Olivia, and I know you have actually reported on other issues such as sexual assault that we've covered today pretty thoroughly. I'm wondering, what is that experience like?
So I did a story on this a couple years ago, and I didn't go about it trying to find a survivor. I interviewed someone on FICARE, and through that I found that many of the FICARE facilitators are actually survivors of sexual assault. Wow. So through finding out information about FICARE, someone came forward and shared their story with me, and I was truly impacted by that, obviously, and touched by their courage and wanted to get their story out. So I think it's so important that we continue to talk about this. We're seeing that nationally even, that survivors are coming forward, and that's part of the work of journalists. So I think that's so important.
Yeah.
And so both Ying's story and that of sexual assault on campus are major issues that you don't always see an immediate impact on. How do you take on a story when you don't necessarily know the end goal yet?
I would say, just following it step by step, every time that there's a new lead, continuing to cover it, continue to research about it, continue to hear from others and have others come forward to you. I think that's extremely important.
And if the story doesn't get out, then just keep reporting on it. Just expand the stories more and more to make sure it gets out there.
Right. And I'm wondering if reporting on a story such as sexual assault or this awful kidnapping, when you don't see an immediate change, whether that's from the administration level or through court hearings, how does that feel as a reporter who was so invested and you just want to see something come out of it?
I mean, it's obviously extremely frustrating. We hope that through our work we can bring about change, but that doesn't necessarily mean it happens quickly. So again, what Stella was saying is staying with the story, continuing to report on it, hoping that it brings about change, hoping that it raises awareness. That's our job, and so we have to remain vigilant, we have to remain persistent, and I think that's important as journalists. So that's something I've always kept in mind, even if I don't see it right away, know that small steps sometimes is the key as well.
Stella, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, pretty much what Olivia said, persistency is really important. We have to continuously report on it to make sure it gets out there, and I think that's the key.
Of course.
And Stella, as an international student working on a story about other international students, is it important for you to be covering topics that you have a personal connection to?
Definitely that's a little complicated because it does kind of connect with me, but I always have to remember that I can't be part of the story and I have to step back and view it as a third-person perspective. But it definitely feels kind of more comforting to know that more people are willing to talk about it, and yeah.
And for both of you, I don't know what professional experience you've had so far, but what have you seen either the biggest difference between, student reporting and then out there in the real world?
You know what? I don't think there's much of a difference, Shani. I really think that our teachers are doing great things and teaching us great work. And I don't know about you, Stella, but when I go out and cover these kind of stories, I don't feel like a student. I feel like the work we are doing is so important that it doesn't feel like I'm a student. I feel like I'm a reporter. And I don't know about you, but that's personally how I feel. And that's a large part due to the amazing staff we have here. So I don't think there is a difference. What do you think? I mean, you guys are journalism students. What do you think when you go out and report these important stories?
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, even though we are reporting from campus and that automatically sets us into, the student mode and focusing on the campus community, I do think that the work we're doing resonates with beyond just the campus community, with the Urbana-Champaign community, with Illinois. We're talking about whether it's state politics, campus politics, no matter what. And we know that these local stories also have national connections. So I completely agree.
And I think it's so important that we continue to take national stories and bring them local because they always apply to our local communities and to campus. So that's what this show is all about, right? And I think we're doing a great job of that.
So how do you do that? How do you take a national story and somehow localize it?
Well, I think our school has so many international students, and we have so many students from different places around the world. And I feel like national stories, any national story could be localized here. I'm sure there's anyone from any part of the world to actually go to this school. And the things that we cover have to do with the things that happen on campus too. So I think anything can be localized here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to add about covering journalism here on campus?
I think we covered everything.
Yeah, I would just say, obviously, the Ying Ying story and then these stories of sexual assault that are coming out, they're difficult stories, but it's important that we take our emotions out and shed the light on the people we're covering because they're the ones who have the courage and they're the ones who are coming forward. So we appreciate their viewpoint, and yeah.
Thank you so much, Olivia and Stella. Thank you for joining us. We will be right back.
Don't ignore the subtext. It's on us to intervene in sexual assault. Because we can. Take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
There. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy. What do you call a pig that knows karate? Pork chop.
Why was the basketball court all wet?
Why?
Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
Can I
I tell you another one? So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it.
What's Beethoven's favorite fruit? Banana. What is a boxer's favorite drink? Fruit punch.
Well, that was really interesting, and I think, Stella and Olivia helped us gain insight into the real issues and difficulties in covering these types of stories.
And I think it's also important to remember that it's not always just about us as well. So we want to reach out to you. Do you have a story that you want to share? Hear My Voice is always looking for stories, writers, reporters, and editors, as well as web designers. If you visit the website, you'll also see that there are really cool things like cooking for college and a creative corner for stories and performances from the arts.
In just a few seconds, we'll tell you how you can join Hear My Voice and help this world become more educated and aware of the voices and masses and their stories from the margins. I'm Shani Ben-Ezra.
And I'm Joe Longo. Thank you for joining us and have a great day, everybody.
Hear My Voice is a registered organization, multimedia program, class and active centralized empowerment initiative directed by Dr. Janice Marie Collins of the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. If you'd like to join or follow Hear My Voice and its efforts of positivity and education through inclusion, visit any of our social media websites or email us at hearmyvoiceuiuc@gmail.com.